All right, well, welcome everybody to this lunch and learn. It's one of the largest ones we've had in a long time, and it's around the Amazon YHM1 project. I will be kind of not fielding, but moderating the questions as they come into the group chat, and they'll be fielded by the appropriate person. And that's about it from me. I'm going to hand it over to Sue Rimac to take over.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you to the PED Lunch and Learn team for providing us this opportunity to present today. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Sue Rimac, and I'm a business development consultant with the City of Hamilton's Economic Development Division. And today we'll be discussing the Amazon YHM1 investment. Joining me today is Tim Vrooman, Senior Planner on the file, Asmaa Al-Hashimi, the plans reviewer who worked on the file, and Jennifer Patterson, Manager of Business Investment and Sector Development for Economic Development. And we will also hear from Brooks Barnett, Business Development Manager for Amazon Canada. So this lunch and learn session will walk you through how Amazon YHM1 came to be and where we are today. So to begin, I'd like to start with providing you a brief of what it is that economic development does. The role of economic development is wide-ranging, and like you, we wear many hats. Business retention of our existing client base is critical. In economic development, we take a proactive approach in reaching out to hundreds of our businesses on a regular basis. Additionally, it is commonplace for many of our local businesses to reach out to the economic development team as well. And as the client's main point of contact, we assist with various matters, from labor force issues to expansions, planning process. It's an extensive list and the work is ongoing. That being said, there are other facets of the job that are just as acute. Business investment and attraction is a significant segment of what we do. And attracting new business and development helps bring jobs to the city and much needed tax dollars to help alleviate the residential commercial divide. And in some instances, it is the economic development team that brings a project to the table. So we're here today to give you a better understanding of how a project that begins with economic development reaches out to the entire PED team and beyond, progressing into a successful outcome, and how it comes back full circle to reside with the Economic Development Division. So where it all began. Back in April of 2018, it began with a cold call from an agent just looking for large swaths of land within the Southern Ontario region, so GTHA and the West region. Economic development get numerous inquiries from various individuals, whether it's private sector, agents, brokers, sometimes from provincial and federal reps. And with each inquiry, our economic development team ensures we customize the information we provide. It's not a cookie cutter approach. So we hone in on what the requirements are and how it is that we can best promote the city as a choice location for their investment. So for this inquiry, it was a basic, what large properties do you have? What do you have from 50 to 100 acres? And when we pressed the agent, he made it clear he was just kind of looking around and would be presenting properties within Southern Ontario to various developers. Sometimes we call this kicking the tires, but you just never know when one might stick and what opportunities may be lurking. The initial information presented to the agent was a vast array of opportunities. It included maps of several business parks with select properties. And we also include information such as zoning or demographics, labor force, as well as our city infrastructure and our assets, including Hamilton International Airport, the Port of Hamilton. There's quite a bit of information we provide. And so after about a week, we didn't hear back from the agent. And a big part of our job is follow up on leads and inquiries to ensure that no stone is left unturned. So we kind of follow up and we follow up and we follow up, just shy of badgering the agent. And after several attempts, that's when it was finally realized the agent was now responsive and there was interest. And so the agent finally revealed to us that there was a developer who was interested, which was Panettone Canada. And as with many inquiries, any conversation or information exchanged is to be held in confidence. As the interest progressed, so did the engagement with the client who brought in the developer, Panettone Canada. Wade Dobbin, who is the principal of Panettone Canada, made it extremely clear that the engagement is to remain confidential between themselves and economic development. And again, this is a very commonplace request by many developers and end users. So there were meetings and phone calls and conversations, and more detailed information was being requested as we honed in on select areas and properties. And by the end of April, the interactions with the client really started to amplify. And with more information being requested, in particular servicing, it is at that point that economic development engaged growth management to assist with the client. And so we fall into May. And at the beginning of May, it was economic development who toured the client to 3 business parks. And of course, after each tour, additional information is provided and follow up. A week later, a second tour with economic development, the client was requested. And again, this time more specific, and again, more follow-up was requested with more detail. And by the 3rd week, tour number 3 happened. And this time it was specific to the AEGD lands, an 82-acre property where YHM1 sits today. For this tour, economic development actually engaged growth management to accompany them on the tour. And on the client side, it was Wade Dobbin of Panattoni, Canada, along with 4 gentlemen from a pension fund. They advised that they were touring 5 locations that day, 3 in the GTA, 1 in Guelph, and 1 in Hamilton. And they advised of the 5 locations they were touring, they would authorize purchase for 1 location only. And so that tour happened on a Thursday, May 31st. Well, by the next morning, Friday, June 1st, Wade Dobbin had called to advise that they chose the Hamilton site and that a conditional offer was submitted for an 82-acre property in the AEGD. Wade also requested a meeting with senior staff to discuss the property, as the client just wanted a high-level overview of the planning process, questions regarding servicing timelines, and the city's commitment to this project. So his call was on a Friday, requesting a meeting for the following Monday morning. The EcDev team immediately reached out to our general manager, Jason Thorne, who provided direction to have senior staff available for the meeting. And so the following Monday morning, June 4th, several senior staff from planning to economic development, growth management, along with then city manager Chris Murray, met with the Panattoni group. And so now we're into kind of the due diligence, if you will. And it's filled with meetings between economic development, planning, growth management to discuss several speculation buildings for the site. And this included a 1 million square foot speculation building. Also during this time, other properties were being bantered around as Panattoni was now looking for other potential sites for development opportunities within the city as well. Due diligence continues, and meetings with various city staff, utilities, agencies, etc. continue. And finally, in October, the due diligence was completed, and the 82-acre property was purchased by Panattoni, and they were the new owners of the land. So to put this into perspective, from the initial meeting in April until the property closed in October, economic development had more than 300 interactions with the developer. There were over 180 emails, over 100 phone calls, 12 meetings, and 3 tours, all to get to this stage. So now I'm going to pass it along to Tim, who will walk us through the planning process, highlighting how this inquiry morphed and engaged numerous city staff and agencies alike to complete one of the largest developments in decades. Tim?
Thank you, Sue, and thank you to the organizing committee for inviting me to speak on this project. As a senior planner in development planning, I was assigned to lead the coordination of the site plan approvals process. We could please have advance the next slide. Thank you. It was a typical mid-November morning in the office about 4 years ago. Management had approached me to advise that we were receiving a site plan application that day, and it was scheduled for development review team meeting within 2 weeks. Okay, so typically from when we receive an application to the development review team meeting, it is a 6 to 8 week process, and that includes a 3-week commenting period. So to say that the application was being expedited would be an understatement. And that day we focused on coordinating the intake of the application, signing file numbers, processing payments, and getting it circulated for comment within 1 day instead of our standard 15-day target. The original application was for 110 Aero Park Boulevard only, which included a proposed 62,000 square meter warehouse with a potential for 32,000 square meter expansion, along with 3 future development blocks. Through coordinated efforts across all city departments, all comments requested for the development review team meeting were received following a comprehensive review of the application within 9 business days, which is also well ahead of the standard 15-day turnaround. The day prior to the development review team meeting, the application was revised to include 50 Air Park Boulevard for another 18,000 square meter warehouse with a potential for a 9,000 square meter expansion. This addendum was given preliminary review at the development review team meeting and was subsequently circulated afterwards. And through the continuous efforts of all involved, all required comments were again received within 15 business days. In response to the comments received at the development review team meeting, the applicant provided a resubmission within 2 weeks, and staff responded within 1 week of the submission to facilitate the conditional approval. Conditional site plan approval was prepared within a matter of 1 to 2 business days and was issued the first week of January 2019. And with exception for the Christmas holiday closure for the week in January, it was issued with only 45 days after the application was first received for the entire 30-hectare site. Commenting agencies continued to be very diligent in prioritizing responses, the subsequent technical submissions, for clearing conditions to meet an agreed upon compressed time frame as much and as often as possible throughout the entire process, which started immediately after the conditional approval was issued. And this will bring us to April 2019, and I'll pass it back to Sue.
Thanks, Tim. As previously mentioned, the client looks to economic development as a main point of contact should any issues arise or if they need assistance. And this was kind of one of the first real kind of hurdles that approached us. So as the application process was being continuing, the client called the Economic Development Office to assist with an issue that arose concerning NAV Canada. So immediately, economic development as well as growth management, we reached out to NAV Canada to see what the issue was and see if there was a resolution. So in essence, NAV Canada was repairing the existing radar dome. And in that process, they would have to place 3 new temporary radar domes on the airport property, with one of those being adjacent to the Panattoni lands. The placement of this temporary radar dome, we were told, would essentially sanitize 80 acres of the 82-acre property with no construction happening for 2 years. After 6 weeks of numerous meetings, conversations between the city, NAV Canada, Tradeport, and the developer, NAV Canada approved new locations for the temporary radar domes, and the development was signed off to continue. And just as one hurdle was cleared, the client called upon economic development again to assist with another issue. And so in June, we received a call from Panattoni Canada advising that there were issues with Enbridge and capacity for gas on the site. So immediately, emergency meetings were held with city staff, planning, growth management, and economic development, with, of course, Enbridge and Panattoni Canada, as well as consultants representing Panattoni Canada. And after several meetings with all parties involved, Enbridge reevaluated, and they were able to commit to gas availability for the proposed developments. So these are just a couple of examples of how clients look to economic development as a resource to assist with the course of development. Now I'm going to pass it back to Tim to continue with the application process. Tim?
Thank you, Sue. The proponent first advanced 50 Aero Park Boulevard through the concurrent site plan and building permit review process, which was a relatively routine application. Clearance for the submission of the building plan review was given in May 2019, and final site plan approval allowing the issuance of building permits was given in September 2019, with the issuance of building permits for the over 24,000 square meter facility immediately following. Panattoni hosted a groundbreaking event on October 22nd of 2019. Having dealt with the airport and gas supply issues that Sue just spoke about, the proponent further advanced 110 Aero Park Boulevard in the summer of 2019, with clearance for the submission of building plan review given in November of 2019, and site plan conditions were substantially cleared in March of 2020. Now I'll bring us to the next slide, please. In May of 2020, the need to amend site plan approval arose from specific development objectives for the confirmed tenant of 110 Arrow Park Boulevard. The application was received for the nearly 80,000 square meter warehouse. So to put that into perspective, that is the equivalent of nearly 8 football fields, or about 14% of all industrial and commercial development approved by the city in the last 4 years combined. Once again, the intake processing and circulation was completed within a couple business days, and all comments were again received within a matter of weeks. Staff held a modified virtual development review team meeting in June 2020, and conditional approval for the site plan amendment was issued on July 2nd, 2020. Once again, only 45 days after the application was received. It is important to keep in mind that this expedited processing and review was right on the heels of staff pivoting to remote working environments due to the pandemic, but we didn't skip a beat during the entire process, and all teams were able to continue responding expeditiously. The site plan amendment application was anticipated through the review and clearance of the previous site plan approval, and the conditional approval structure was customized for this specific development in order to maximize the efficiencies of the concurrent review process by deferring several conditions to various stages of building permit reviews in consultation with building and development engineering staff. Staff and the proponent worked very closely with status updates and coordinating the stages of site plan clearances and building permits to remain on track with the construction schedule, and planning staff to work closely with the proponent throughout the resubmission stages, providing preliminary review and feedback with each resubmission within 1 to 2 business days to flag any comments that may have been overlooked prior to circulating for technical review to avoid any delays during the formal review periods. The site-specific approval process and continuous communication between the parties allowed the building permit submissions to advance within a month of conditional approval. Meanwhile, transportation infrastructure improvements for the signalization of Glenard Drive and Upper James Street and other improvements to Glenard Drive, Arrow Park Boulevard, Upper James Street, and Dickinson Road West for transportation and servicing capacity and the introduction of transit service progressed in tandem. In late 2020, with building construction underway, there was a pause of the site design for further revisions for further realignment of Arrow Park Boulevard to improve the parking area layout and also for the relocation of the water pump house building. With that, I will turn it over to Asmaa.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you to the organizing committee for the invite to contribute to this session. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Asmaa Al-Hashimi. Currently, I'm a business development consultant with Economic Development Division. Now, before joining the Economic Development team, I was a member of the Building Engineering team in the Building Division, and that team is responsible for reviewing and approving building permits for large development projects in the city. I want to thank Alan Shaw, Chief Building Official, for the opportunity to share remarks about the Amazon project on behalf of the Building Division as a former team member that worked on the file. As you have heard earlier, the working relationship with the site developer of 110 Arrow Park started with adjacent property at 50 Arrow Park. And it was June of 2020, I received a call from Panettone's lead consultant, JRI Architects, advising that they would be applying for a building permit for a very large building. And there were a few building code items that they wanted to discuss with us prior to submitting the permit application. Right away, I notified management, and we scheduled a pre-consultation meeting with the team to discuss the challenges from a design perspective and the potential solutions to address them. In July of 2020, the building permit application for the foundation was accepted under the concurrent review process, followed by the application for the shell of the building in August of 2020. Both permit applications were reviewed and building permits were issued in September of 2020. Now, in the initial meeting that we had with the developer in June, they shared with us their tight and aggressive time frame related to the construction schedule. And as a municipality and a building division, it is challenging for us to accommodate time frames requested by developers, as we follow review time frames outlined in the building code for permit applications. Further, management has to evaluate priorities based on workload, staffing, complexities of projects, and also the impact on the city. And for this project, management recognized the importance of this project hence why we were able to prioritize it and phase the development. Next slide, please. Between February and August of 2021, 5 building permits were issued for the site for the different phases of the interior fit-out, fire protection systems, and accessory structures as the developer obtained their final site plan approval from Planning Division. Next slide, please. Moving to 2022, a couple of other permits were issued for the site, and the occupancy approval for the building was phased as well to allow the Amazon team to move slowly into the building while finalizing the construction. The first phase of occupancy was approved in September of 2021, and the last phase was completed in February of this year. And as of now, all building permits are closed and completed, which is fantastic. Next slide, please. Now, before I close, it is really important to highlight the great work and effort of all city staff that worked on this file from different divisions, as well as the consultants hired by the developer and led by JRI Architects. We had weekly meetings and sometimes daily calls with the team to review, discuss, and provide directions on structuring the different applications to phase the project. And that required extensive coordination and collaboration with several teams internally, including the building engineering, zoning section, building inspections, planning division, growth management, economic development, public works, and other teams. We had meetings with consultants from Ontario, British Columbia, Quebec, Michigan, and Seattle to ensure that we're all on the same page and that we city staff have the required information to facilitate and issue approvals. Speaking on behalf of my colleagues that worked on this file, we appreciate the consultants' work, professionalism, and efforts to work with all divisions to address comments efficiently. Considering the many challenges, consultants remained focused and truly put efforts to work with us rather than against us. And that demonstrates this project wasn't only about the development piece. It was about managing people, managing expectations, and managing priorities. And that brings me to my next point, that this success story happened in the middle of a global pandemic. City staff were adjusting to working remotely while managing a full load of projects during another busy record year with construction values exceeding $1 billion. City staff were balancing work and home life. It was challenging, however, we city staff got the job done successfully and put many extra hours to ensure this project continues to move forward. And that shows and it really speaks to the quality of staff and public servants that work and support the city. We combined our sense of responsibility and personal pride knowing that we are making a difference in the community and the future of the city. And this is in line with the city's corporate pillars of collective ownership, sensational service, and steadfast integrity. On behalf of my colleagues that worked on this file, I want to thank the management team within PED and other city departments for their support in facilitating this file. Thank you very much, and over to you, Sue.
Thanks so much, Asmaa, and thanks, Tim, for walking us through this. As mentioned previously, economic development remains with the file and is the main point of contact. And as this development itself is completed, the file actually transitions into an ongoing working file between Amazon Canada and the economic development team. And to give you a better understanding of what that may include and what Amazon brings to the city, I am very pleased to introduce Mr. Brooks Barnett, Manager, Business Development for Amazon Canada. Brooks?
Thanks, Sue, and hi, everybody. First of all, I just wanted to maybe start by, of course, introducing myself. I've got the great pleasure and privilege of leading economic development across Canada for Amazon. We have been in Canada now for close to 20 years. We started our journey here. The physical journey of Amazon in Canada started in Mississauga with one fulfillment center. We now have more than 65 locations across Canada with a very, very healthy pipeline of sites coming online, literally almost in every region, coast to coast, with exception of the territories. So, our growth continues really unabated. And really, since the pandemic, we've seen an explosion in really the growth of the business in Canada. So it's a positive time for us. It's a great time to be, of course, with Amazon, but of course, working with all of our partners as we continue to grow and expand. I did want to, of course, credit economic development at the city and all of our partners that we've been working with. You know, I think the success of this project is due in no small part to really having eager and collaborative partners on the municipal side, on the regional side. And it goes without saying that we can't do what we do without having partners that do what you do. So I really wanted to, of course, express my personal gratitude for all of the help that the team has been, and I know that I speak on behalf of all of our colleagues when I say the same. I did want to maybe chat a little bit about some of the unique features of that site, why we came to Hamilton, and you know the view of that Amazon has with respect to our project there, and how excited we are to be in Hamilton. We're about 40,000 Amazonians in Canada now. That was, you know, that number is impressive. It is still growing. There are about 4,100 associates now on staff at YHM1 in Hamilton. So we are there, and there's quite a good many of us there. It is, you know, of course, important to mention also, and I think the team has already kind of, you know, presented, I think, some of the key facts and figures relating to our development there. But, you know, we have a site that's, you know, close to 1 million square feet, 855,000 square feet. A few other stats, which I think are pretty impressive. There's more than 7 kilometers of conveyor belt running around that site. You know, we have a pretty healthy robotics footprint there. Goes without saying that Amazon is a leader with respect to industrial real estate, but also just tech-enabled industrial real estate. Our associates are working collaboratively with pretty advanced robotics to meet the needs of our customers. So we have conveyor belts, of course, doing a lot of the work. We've got robotic arms that can process up to 400 totes per hour. And really the capacity for that site, or how many packages we're able to ship from that site, is substantial. More than 4.2 million units per week can leave that site at peak. And the peak season, of course, for us is all the high buying times of the year, really extending from Black Friday and Thanksgiving all the way to the end of the Christmas and holiday season. So we're able to really move a lot through the site. We can store about 28 million units of inventory on that particular piece of property alone. So this is a big site, and it's important for our entire network. Of course, the site just doesn't sit on its own. It operates in tandem with a variety of other sites in the region. For us, customer obsession is absolutely vital. So we build out a pretty robust real estate and logistics network to be able to meet the needs of our customers. Why did we choose Hamilton? You know, Hamilton's got a lot going for it. There are a lot of people now in the greater Golden Horseshoe. Our customers are there. Of course, we can find a very good labor pool in Hamilton. We look at other, you know, factors as well. Where is the growth in our customer base expected? Where can we find land? Where can we find industrial assets? And how fast can we bring those online? Those are all green lights for us. And so we're very pleased with the project, and you know, we'll be there a while. I did want to kind of mention a few other things, because I always think about economic development, of course, in terms of the investments we're making. And of course, you can imagine this is a substantial real estate investment for us. But really the investments we're making in the economic development of the region really kind of comes back to our staff, our associate base, and our growing customer base. To that end, we are doing a lot on a lot for associates in the buildings, and a lot on associate experience, as we call it. We have more than, you know, about 4,100 associates now kind of on staff here, but we are improving their experience with some pretty innovative processes. For example, you know, we've got 10 prayer zones in this building alone, wellness zones, an employee fun zone where you can go basically and decompress through the day. We have wellness zones, and we have all kinds of programmatic pieces that are helping our associates really enjoy their work with us and on the site. It bears, I think it's important to mention, we have associates that claim some heritage from about 60, 70 different countries. So it's a very diverse, associate base here. So, we very much want to be in the community and be there long term. From that site alone, we are making some investments in the community. We have, I think, some fairly landmark community engagement initiatives around robotics and youth programming. We do other things with local needs, including, right now needs relating to food scarcity and insecurity. And then, of course, all kinds of very super and hyper local charitable kind of giving that we've been doing. So, we want to be good neighbors. We're in Hamilton for the long run. We have other fulfillment centers in the region. We have other delivery stations and sortation centers in the region. And our network is going to be quite important as a growing feature of our operations in the greater Golden Horseshoe. We're excited to be in Hamilton. We're excited to keep growing there and serving our customers and working with you all. I'd be happy to answer any particular questions about Amazon and the community as we get to the Q&A. But again, let me just end by saying how grateful I am for all of your support and all of your collaboration moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your presentation, Brooks. I think the insight you provided helps all of us have a better understanding of who Amazon is and highlights how it benefits the city as a whole. The success of Amazon, the Amazon development, is a true testament of the tremendous effort and commitment by all city staff. So now I'm just going to pass it along to Jennifer Patterson, Manager of Business Investment and Sector Development for Economic Development, to close us out. Jen?
Thank you, Sue, and Tim and Asmaa for walking us through this very extensive process. As we've all learned here today, it takes collaboration, patience, some persistence, and a lot of support to get developments or investments like Amazon YHM1 over the finish line. As Asmaa suggested earlier, this is a great example of our collective ownership, steadfast integrity. I would also add courageous change, as we're always looking at new and innovative ways to improve how we do things. And of course, we're all about providing sensational service. Investment attraction, business retention, expansion are all key attributes of what our business investment and sector development team focus on every day. Now that Amazon YHM1 is calling Hamilton home, our team continues to work with them as they grow successfully in our community. This new development, located in our Airport Employment Growth District and next to John C. Munro International Airport, was originally expected to create 1,500 jobs. Working with Amazon's HR division, we continue to provide support in their hiring. We have introduced them to Mohawk College, McMaster University, Redeemer University, and our Hamilton Immigration Partnership Council, along with other resources, as we assist their HR team in their hiring efforts. And as Brooks suggested, they're now up to 4,100 employees, and our understanding is this is expected to increase over the holiday season with support and seasonal support workers. With this significant increase in employment, triggers further support from our colleagues in HSR. We are all working together to ensure people are moving safely and efficiently to and from this site. Very important. And on behalf of our team and the city, once again, a big thank you to Brooks and the Amazon YHM1 team for your investment in our community. Comprised of over 1 million square feet in gross floor area and valued at approximately $245 million, this Amazon YHM1 fulfillment center is the city's largest industrial development in over 30 years. I would be remiss without mentioning your second location, Brooks, located in Stony Creek, a last mile facility that is an adaptive reuse of an existing 48,000 square foot building that employs approximately, in my understanding, is now 85 people, or that could be also increased. But your company's investment demonstrates a clear commitment to the community and has leveraged Hamilton's strengths in the goods movement sector. You have helped put Hamilton on the map as we are attracting further developments and investments similar to yours from the likes of Bridgestone, Continental Tire, recently IKEA, and more. Thank you all again. And if there's any questions, that concludes the formal presentation.
Thanks, Jen. Chris, we'll leave it to you. If there are any questions, we're opening up the floor, folks.
Sorry. Thanks. I haven't seen any questions come in the group chat. So if anybody has any questions, you can send them in the chat section of the window. You can send it to myself, and I'll ask. I'll read the question, and the appropriate person will field it.
So maybe, Chris, I'll get the ball rolling. Brooks, I'm going to put you on the spot here. With respect to YHM1, this is your newest fulfillment center. And with Christmas around the corner, this will be your first kind of high season here. Can you tell us what we can expect from that?
Definitely a lot of activity. It was mentioned earlier that, this is, I think now we're kind of in a post-COVID environment. Certainly, I think it's going to be very interesting to see kind of what, demand is going to be and just how different that's going to be in a post-pandemic kind of environment, when everybody was predominantly at home, buying packages, ordering quite regularly. Of course, physical retail was shuttered for some of that. E-commerce was very, very important, and Amazon's role is very, very important in that, being one of the largest e-commerce retailers. So it's going to be very interesting to see kind of what the holiday season 2022 will look like. All of our sites generally are just a buzzing around the holiday season. You'll see kind of an uptick in the number of associates that are working at the site. We have some peak workers. We've got some seasonal staff that are going to come in and be extra hands on deck as we kind of continue to get the packages out the door. There'll be a slight uptick probably in the trucks servicing the sites. I should probably mention line haul trucks that kind of service the site are about 120 a day. That could go to 160 a day for the peak season. So it's going to be very interesting to see kind of how busy the site will get. But it's all hands on deck, and there's going to be a lot of extra packages kind of moved through. We're expecting that's going to be quite healthy this year as well. And of course, every fulfillment center across Canada is seeing a lot of the same things, right? These sites are going to be run very hot, and then we're going to see just exactly how much extra business they're doing. But yeah, they're going to be busy little places. And then of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention that it's possible to take tours of them. So if you know an Amazonian, definitely reach out through Sue and through me. I'd be happy to bring some people into the site, and you can take virtual tours of all of our sites at any point. So there's a process on Amazon's website for that. I can circulate some information, and for anybody who hasn't seen kind of one of our sites in action, it's quite a site. So I definitely encourage you to do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brooks. Chris, do we have any questions?
No, got one that just came in. It's from George Zajic. He loved the presentations by everyone. Great job by all. With respect to employment, is it 4,100 employees for that one facility? And are the employees all Hamiltonians or from the general regional area?
Yeah, it's a good question. So yeah, that's 4,100 at that facility. The second facility in Stony Creek, that will likely be, by the time it's done, kind of a couple hundred there. It generally will be mostly Hamiltonians and I guess people in the immediate vicinity. But we now fish from a little bit wider a kind of a catchment area. We find that with good public transit, our associates are able to kind of get to the site and get to, our places pretty conveniently. And so we're able to kind of pull from a little bit wider a space, but 4,100 there. And then, the other site, when it's fully kind of operational, and it will be another couple hundred there. So, predominantly in the GTA as well, we are, the GTA, Milton, Mississauga, Brampton, Hamilton are becoming towns where we're seeing the most of our associates come from those places. So generally you'll see people come from within, 45-minute drive to our site.
If I can add there too, George, one of Hamilton's greatest value propositions is our location. So not only if it's location or access to markets, why goods movement is one of our key sectors here, but also our catchment area for labor force is significant. And so we see that a lot with companies, and some of those things we track with when we're meeting with companies is identifying where that labor is coming from, so we know which markets. And this is where transit and the all-day go are really important for us as a community, as we attract people coming into the community as well.
Just got another question from Brian Hollingworth. He says, any comments on modes of transportation access for employees, e.g. importance of good transit access?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes without saying that, you know, we try to find sites where, you know, we can get, that I think are also underpinned by solid public transit. Many of our associates, you know, rely on public transit to get to our sites. Many have cars, however, many are taking, you know, bus, subway, train, and various other kind of combinations therein. So that is critically important. But sometimes our sites have to be, by virtue of what we're trying to build on the network wide side. Sometimes our sites are not in places where there is strong transit. You know, we have sites that are in somewhat rural locations where there isn't transit. So Amazon does have a kind of an internal function called My Commute, which is a transit problem solving and solution finding business line, trying to essentially figure out, with the help and collaboration of transit authorities, what we can do. There are times in which Amazon will make some investments in trying to figure out more reliable bus service, try to figure out, you know, can we put a bus station inside of a site or on the same block or something of that nature. So yeah, that's a key question for us. And one of the reasons why I think the site is a success is because, you know, there are options for associates to use to get there. So, you know, it's an ongoing question for the business, certainly, but we have really good collaboration from our municipal partners so far, especially in Hamilton.
Okay, one more, or another one. Can we get a timeline on road enhancements to Upper James, Dickinson Road West, and connections to the 403 or number 6 bypass?
I think that may be a question for one of our other staff that may be on the line that could speak to that, and maybe Brian or
Yeah, maybe
another member
someone
of
from
yeah.
transportation planning.
Transportation planning, yeah.
Omar, you want to take a crack at it?
Margaret, yes, you and I can probably tag team on this. So we are currently working on the AGD TMP update, just to reconfirm the right-of-way widths and the need for some of these facilities. Obviously, these are some critical spines of our transportation network for movements of people and goods, as it relates to the business park. Timing-wise, there are a number of following the master plan, there will be a number of subsequent studies to fulfill the phases 3 and 4 of the EAs and have all of the detailed designs ready for these corridors in coordination with other servicing that are required to service all of these sites within the AGD. So to my knowledge, and maybe Margaret can confirm that, Dickinson Road is planned for construction in 2027 onwards, and there will be an EA for the Book Road and Dickinson Road extension, which will connect these two corridors to Highway 6. And obviously, there was a provincial announcement for enhancements on Highway 6, which is another accomplishment and a great infrastructure improvement for Hamilton to support the businesses in the AGD and around the YHM. Margaret, anything you want to add on that?
Sure. So with the broccolini application coming in and other applications north of Dickinson Road, I believe that the first leg of the Dickinson Road reconstruction will take place with the trunk sewer coming in as far as the broccolini site. I don't know if that answers the question of the person who's asking the question, but that's sort of the first initial step that we're planning on taking on Dickinson Road, and that's around the time 2026, 27 when we would start that. After that, the subsequent studies will determine the priority sequence of whether it's a Dickinson Road extension that'll connect to Book Road and its widening, or whether it'll be an alternative arterial road that will be running south of there. That will be the first to be constructed. But we definitely want a connection to Highway 6 to be happening sooner rather than later. So those are the highest priority projects in the AEGD. Does that answer your question?
Thanks for that, Omar. Thanks for that, Margaret.
You're welcome.
Yes, that answers the question.
Thanks. That's great.
Okay, got another question from Omar Shams. Great presentations, everyone. Are there any plans for unloading cargo directly to the YHM1 facility, as opposed to relying on trucks for bringing packages to the site for further distribution? 160 trucks is a lot of trucks.
I guess to answer the question, there are no plans that I'm aware of. 160 trucks is, it may sound like a lot, 160 trucks through the day. We will never have 160 leaving at one point, certainly. And indeed, that number is the utmost of trucks that you could, through peak, move. It's much more like 120, which there is a, obviously that's fewer than 160, but they are scheduled throughout the day. We do that so that the roads are not kind of too clogged with truck traffic. But no, there are no plans that I'm aware of at the present time.
All right, another question from George Zajic. May have missed it, but any expansion thoughts on the existing facility in the future?
George, if you're referring to maybe making the site bigger, there is some ability to do that, but there isn't so far a plan. The site is, in its life cycle, it's still crawling, and so when I think the business comes to a point to, somewhere in the future, obviously, to reconsider kind of its optimization, maybe we would think about that. That's not unusual to see. You'll see a lot of retrofitting of our sites, and a lot of kind of reconfiguration. I would also make mention of the fact that, in Amazon's case, we are innovating quite rapidly on the physical side, and so many of our buildings are built with a high standard in sustainability, materials and processes, construction, all of that, as well as just operationally in the building. We have a variety of different innovations that will are important for us on day one, but also as we move forward, we'll only get sharper and more innovative. And so there could be chances to kind of take the shell and, figure out what more we need in it, or how do we build onto our existing operation there. But those are decisions that will be, well into the future. Happy to be in Hamilton.
Any other questions, Chris?
Nothing that's come in just now. So the last one was from George. Oh, one more from Monir. I'm not gonna. Very long last name. I will pronounce it incorrectly. I don't want to do that. Are we bringing more plants versus a warehouse like Amazon?
I can probably start with that. Yes. So from a goods movement, I guess it depends on the sector of the economy that we're focused on, but there are other investments that are coming into the city, of course. But in this particular, the Lunch and Learn, we focus on the goods movement sector. So yes, so companies like Bridgestone, Continental Tire, IKEA, and more are coming into city, but there are other plants. As we know, goods movement is a big sector for us here, but there's also manufacturing. We actually just completed our manufacturing strategy, or we're in process of completing our manufacturing strategy. Will go to council within the new year, but there's also talking about how we're growing that manufacturing community here, and that includes food and beverage processing, life sciences, as you know, and Asmaa is now part of our team. She's our business development consultant focused on our life sciences and ICT sectors. So there's other investments like these coming into the city. So I think you're going to see more of that as we continue to grow.
And if I can just add to that, thanks, Jen. So typically, the general rule of thumb for warehousing type employment is about 1 person per 1,000 square feet. And for this facility, Amazon is 4 times that amount. But the other thing to mention is this is their most advanced robotics facility. And we are continuing to work with the folks at Amazon, but some of the benefits that kind of I'd like to highlight as a corporate citizen, a new corporate citizen to the city, is that not only are they employing 4,000 people, they're paying living wage jobs. They provide benefits for full-time employees from the HOP. They also provide education type benefits. So if you would like to continue into post-secondary, and I recently did a tour of the facility and was very pleased to see, and Brooks spoke to it, some wellness rooms. They celebrate their diversity with their employees. And it was a really good kind of camaraderie, if you will, and embracing of a diverse workforce. So I just thought I'd add that in there. Brooks, if you have any comments to add.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. There's kind of a few interesting kind of pieces to this. Amazon, for example, is exceeding the regional, local, provincial, national minimum wages in almost every jurisdiction in which we operate. So not only are folks, getting, I think, a good living wage hourly, folks are also getting, our RRSP matching program support, mat leave, pat leave, very, very generous. And really, I think the piece that is very, I think, industry leading for us, and it's just, in line with our corporate leadership principle to be the world's best employer, 97% tuition matching from the company, and you do not need to work with us beyond the date of the completion of your degree. And so we are partnering on that program, which is called Career Choice, with a variety of educational institutions in every town in which we operate. So there's kind of, world-class employee support programs that are available. The other thing I wanted to say, as an economic development practitioner, we tend to focus on, the real estate investment that we make. It's an easy data point to look at. We tend to focus on, how many people are we employing, what are we paying them, et cetera. Those are all pretty, run-of-the-mill data points. In our unique case, it's the third-party kind of benefits to Amazon that are also very notable. What I mean is, think of all of the groups that are doing business with Amazon and that are connected to our development. When we do well, they do well. 41,000 Canadian small businesses now operate with us and use our platform for their transactions and their business growth. There are more than 100,000 of those, or more than, I think there's 2,000 of those businesses now have an annual revenue bump of $100,000 by virtue of the fact that they were working with us. So that's added revenue for small businesses in Canada, in Hamilton, in Ontario. that are working with us and are finding more success for that fact. So there's all kinds of spillover benefits that come to, you know, other businesses working with us, both in the community and otherwise. So I wanted to, of course, say that, you know, from an economic development perspective, there's all kinds of stories like that and narratives like that that are important to focus on as well. So we're doing everything we can do to support a growing and talented pool of workers in Hamilton, and we'll continue doing that moving forward.
Okay, got 2 questions. I'll just from 2 different people. I'll start with the one from Mark Patterson. What are the barriers to having cargo jets offloading goods directly at the Amazon site?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I could probably answer that without kind of doing a deeper dive on how that business would work. You know, we do have you know, Amazon Air, for example, is growing quite rapidly. That's of course our air freight and air cargo business line. You will have also heard about, you know, Amazon testing and working on commercial and freight drones. So there is a lot of value in both of those business lines. The American version of Amazon that, you know, Amazon in the States is basically kind of leading on air freight and air cargo, both on the drone side and on our standard kind of planes side. We have not seen as of yet those lines come to Canada in a meaningful way, but I'm sure that there are a variety of benefits to doing that. But I haven't had a deep look at the barriers to doing that. Potentially is an opportunity worth exploring. Just seeing the second question here, Amazon considering environmental sustainability. That's of course very important to us. Amazon has made the climate pledge. We want to be net zero by 2050. We're already starting that. We are putting solar panels on roofs for many of our different assets, including fulfillment centers, just like this one. So that of course is becoming SOP for us. I think the other kind of, you know, notably for us as a major company depending on shipping and trucking, we have now committed to trying to lower our carbon emissions through, you know, trucking. You will have hopefully seen Amazon's recent purchase of 100,000 Rivian vehicles. Those are net zero delivery trucks or electric delivery trucks that are servicing the business in the United States. That will eventually come to Canada. And so you'll see a lot more on the EV side appear. But in terms of building sustainability and materials, we're also trying to lead on that. You know, one of our sites, for example, DVV2, which is located in Sydney, British Columbia, it is one of the most sustainably built industrial assets probably in the country. So on construction materials, you know, we're leading there. And then of course we are committing to finding new ways of doing power generation. We are now the biggest purchaser of clean energy in Ontario, I believe. And so we're making kind of leaps and bounds on that side.
Awesome. Okay. Chris, I think our time is just about up. I would like to thank everyone for participating in today's Lunch and Learn. I hope that you did learn something today. Thank you to all of our presenters. And a special thanks and a shout out goes to you, Brooks, for joining us today. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, guys. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everybody.